So John, could you speak about the work that you do in highlighting the situation for people who suffered abuse at the hands of the church and the state?
Yeah, well, I started off in 2009 on the release of the Rhine Report, when my own childhood traumas were triggered, and I exploded like a volcano, and ended up at the Dáil trying to block up the road and protest what was going on. That was 2009, and I attended the silent protest which was held shortly afterwards outside the Dáil, and there was about 3,000 or 4,000 people at that, and since then there really hasn't been too much response in regard to the Rhine Report. I carried on with my own protesting at the church, because I believe that these people were the root cause of Ireland's problems, and I've been watching it for many years, been in my own family as a Catholic family and how they were affected. I lived in London through most of my childhood, so I'm looking at Ireland from a different perspective. It's like I'm still an Irishman, but I'm looking at it from the outside, and I missed out an awful lot of the indoctrination that went on in Ireland. So in that sense, I suppose I'm lucky or privileged that I can see it from an outside source and view it from an outside source. So I suppose that gives me the stamina, the energy, the courage, to stand up to these people for what they've done to us. Not just me, but hundreds of thousands of young children who suffered at their hands. In 2010, I went on hunger strike outside Archbishop Dermot Martin's residence, which was formerly called the Bishop's Palace, to highlight the first year of the Rhine Report, that there was still an injustice there, because the survivors were coming in and out through the redress board, and they were being knocked for six. They were going back into this cycle of abuse by the very same people that put them through the abuse in the first place, by denying them their restorative justice, by being heard in a court and be fully compensated for what had happened to them. And the redress board took all that away from the survivors. He came on board. Hearn said, well, this would be a lot easier for survivors. There'd be no need for solicitors, lawyers. It'll be fast-tracked, straightforward, and out and done with. But that wasn't the case. Many of the survivors were ripped off by unscrupulous solicitors in the redress board. There was no need for any solicitor to be there, and yet they were. And speaking on behalf of their clients, they were going from one room into another where an offer was made, and then the solicitor went back and told the survivor what the offer was. It wasn't always the offer that was made in the first instance. A lot of the solicitors took a very big cut out of that award before it was put to the survivor. And I've been put to the survivor saying, well, that's it. You don't take this, that's it. You're going to get nothing. So many a survivor lost an awful lot of money in the redress board. So after 2010, I joined up with another guy and started protesting outside the Pro Cathedral. I believe myself that by actually having a protest outside the church is bringing the problem back to the church doors. And lot of them would say, well, you know, they're not all like that. There's only a few bad apples. But I don't believe that to be the case. And I also believe that anybody that walks through the doors of a church is just as responsible for the rape and murder of our children as those that perpetrated it directly onto the children. These people are going into the churches and they're supporting them. They're saying it's okay to do what you're doing, and we're happy to believe what you tell us, and that is wrong. Because there's a lot of children in Ireland at risk because this issue of child abuse is not been dealt with at any level. It's all been covered up. We have quite recently the Pt1 babies, which has been highlighted, which it was a story broke nearly 30 years ago, and it's only coming back now, like to haunt us in a way. But there we have modern baby homes. These are going to come into the fold now. We have the Magdalene laundries, who have had very little or no compensation to date. Many of the women that applied or went to Judge Quirk have been refused on the grounds that they said they weren't in the laundries, which is absolutely incredible that these women have been treated like this, that they're now been denied any financial compensation for what they suffered in there, and even the financial compensation would never ever cover for what happened to those women. So we have the Magdalene laundries, that's like been completely diluted. They were very, very lucky to get an apology, because at the end of the day it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Then we had the industrial schools, stroke, orphanages. This is, I don't know how would you put it, it's in the actual acts, it's industrial schools, stroke, orphanages. There's two separate units under one name, and the orphanages connect to the mother and baby homes, and they connect to the Magdalene laundries. Children that were brought through the Magdalene laundries or the mother and baby homes up to the age of 7 were then sent in to the industrial schools because they were still part of the orphanages. So it all connected in together. Now the mother and baby homes are starting to come up now, and there's a lot of information to be revealed about what went on in the mother and baby homes. And just looking at the Pt1 babies, having read a few blogs, I seen an interesting article where the maps of Pt1, of the mother and baby home, were shown. And there was just shivers running up my spine when I was reading that the building was built in 22, 23, in around that period, as a workhouse. And there's a lot of crypts under this building. And I just found it very unusual why would you be building a workhouse with crypts underneath it. This was before Hitler came into power. So I believe this was a very, very well orchestrated plan in the destruction of our children that has been going on for centuries in Ireland. We discovered, or there has been discovered, some bones in a disused septic tank. There's not too much more information just on that, and of course the media are having a field day with it because they don't know whether it's fact or whether it isn't fact, and there's all sorts been thrown out now, so nobody really knows exactly what's going to go on now. Like the Ryan report, Minister Flanagan has now I'm going to be drawing up the, what is that? I can't think of the name of it now. No, I can't think of the name, but it's drawing up this plan with all these other bodies that are going to investigate everything that's been presented to them by the survivors to investigate. And it's hoped, I think by September, that the investigation will be going ahead. But like the Ryan report, it's going to be watered down. It's going to be so complex that survivors or adoptees or illegally adopted, are going to have to really read these acts, what they draw up now, the legislation, and then they have to go back to the legislation that they were incarcerated under or adopted illegally, and it's a minefield. And for a judge to say to anybody, ignorance of the law is no defence, it's absolutely incredible. There's one thing I wasn't taught in school was law. If I stand in front of a judge, I can't offer my innocence. I don't know the law. But it's good enough for a judge to say that, it's ignorance is no defence. But I plead my ignorance because I don't know law.
John, can I just ask you, could you comment on the role of the police